Hello, and welcome to Nothing Ever Happens in Canada, but we know this is simply not true. This is a Canadian podcast looking to explore the myths, legends, and just good old stories Canada has to tell. I'm Canadian Girl. Thanks so much for joining me today on this haunted adventure in the Badlands. Now let's grab our helmets, make sure your lamp is working, you're going to want it, as we head into the Badlands to the old Atlas coal mine. As we walk around the grounds and learn about some of the very strange stories the mine has to tell. From an office that was to remain locked at all times, to the ghost of a woman and a small boy who are often seen together, frozen sandwiches, lukewarm tea, and a safe that remained locked for so many years until recently. Now let's head into the Atlas coal mine's very haunted grounds. This is just a word of caution here. This tale is a little darker than some on the channel, dealing with ghosts, gambling, fighting, sex work, hauntings, and more. If these topics may be upsetting to you, please skip this adventure and head out on a different one. That being said, you know me, I will only say what needs to be said, nothing in great detail. It's a dreary rainy day here in the Badlands, as we enter the old Atlas coal mine to take a tour on these haunted grounds. Just 20 kilometers or 12.4 miles south of Drumheller, Alberta, in the small ghost town of East Coulee, we find the old Atlas coal mine, the last of 139 coal mines that once ran in the Drumheller Valley. Today, Drumheller is known for its dinosaurs, but from 1911 to 1984, she was known as the coal capital of Canada. A coal mining boom would take over the Alberta Badlands just like a gold rush did. It attracted men from all over to come line their pockets with any riches they could get their hands on. The Atlas coal mine, affectionately called the Atlas by many, was in operation from 1936 to 1979. She was the longest running of all the coal mines in the valley, opening with just 50 employees to start, paying $9.25 a day. That's $172.25 in today's money. At one point in time, there were 300 people employed by the Atlas. And when the miners got paid, the city of Drumheller knew it. Over 55 million tons of wildfire coal, that's what they called it, came out of the Drumheller Hills during the coal mining era in the valley, from the 139 mines in operation over the years. Drumheller coal is often credited for helping build the nation in its early days. The coal was used to heat homes, for cooking, electronic generation, and by the Canadian Pacific and the Canadian National rail lines, transporting goods, services, and people across the nation. Today, the Atlas coal mine is considered the most complete historic coal mine, and since 2002 has been a National Historic Site, containing the last standing wooden tipple in the entire country and the largest in North America. About 33,000 people show up each year to this little ghost town to have a look around. On the grounds there is a total of 9 original buildings, an old miner's shack, numerous tracks and trails, old mining tools and equipment, the mining office that remained locked for so many years, an eerie old wash house, a pre-1936 battery-powered train, a lamp house, a warehouse, and there's even some really old paperwork still kicking around like Christmas lists, employee pay stubs, and more. During the mine's operation, 13 people would lose their lives. The biggest accident happened on June 24, 1941. The mine lost 4 men that day. In total, over the 139 mines, 207 lives were lost in the coal capital of Canada at the time. The Atlas now has been closed for over 40 years, but there are still many tales of some miners that have never left the grounds. The gray skies are coming over the rolling hills, and there's a chill in the wind that just makes this place feel that much creepier today. The mine is usually open from May to October, giving guided tours all over the property, including an underground tour, a ride on that old pre-1936 battery-operated train, the Tipple Tour, and the Unmentionables Tour, a very famous Halloween favorite in the area. The tour is taken at dusk and will take you to actual spots on the ground where things happen and tell you the story as the sun goes down. For this tour, you must be 14 years old, so please use caution if coming with small children. Sadly, due to COVID-19 lurking around out there, the Atlas has been shut down for the time being. So we're going to have to use a little bit of that podcast magic to get in today. When natural gas came to town, it put the coal mines right out of business, leaving behind a trail of ghost towns in Alberta's Drumheller Valley. Like East Coulee, where we are right now, home of just 148 residents today, it was once the home to 3,800 people. Some more ghost towns in the area are Knackmine, Dorothy, Wayne, where I have actually been to, and Willow Creek, which actually vanished entirely off the map. A fun fact about the little ghost town of Wayne, which is right nearby. Parts of Shanghai Noon, starring Jackie Chan, was filmed here, as well as Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. But before these towns became ghost towns, they were filled with hard-working miners. At least one bar could be found in any small town, often many more. Hotels, family members, ladies of the night, makeshift casinos, and so much more. And on paydays, the miners were known to come into town and let loose. Who could blame them after working in the conditions that most of them had to? Dry, dirty areas with little no clean air to breathe. Most days not seeing light at all, being underground so long, and working those long, back-breaking hours, only to have to sleep in a next-to-nothing shack on the mine grounds. Conditions were so cold at times the miners were known to grab bricks from the blacksmith shop to keep by their feet to help stay warm, only to take them back and switch them out again on break for new, warm ones. The Badlands in Alberta can get as cold as -40 at times, plus with the wind chill on top of that. To my American listeners, think Alaska cold. It's pretty darn cold at times. Working the tipple was one of the worst jobs during these cold days and nights. The wind would blow right through the wooden 7-story structure. A tipple is a structure used in mining to load and unload material like coal in and out of rail carts for shipping, and this one stands at 7 stories tall. I do have pictures of this amazing mine site that can be found at nothingcanada.com under the show notes section, along with some great videos, or the links can always be found in the show notes below. Miners working the tipple on those very cold days would often complain their sandwiches would freeze solid in their lunch pail, and you were lucky if your coffee might stay lukewarm in your thermos. You could say they had a little steam to blow off, and most were short on the amount of hours they had been able to sleep, making their decisions along with the good old alcohol they had consumed not so great. They would all head into their favorite pubs to forget about the week's work they had all just survived. Naturally, this brought on drinking, fighting, gambling, and so much more. Men often simply disappeared into the night or the hills, never to be seen again, leading many to believe most were murdered due to past gambling debts or simply crossing the wrong person. Arguments between local mining company workers became so bad at times, lines were often drawn in bars to keep everyone in their own sections and try to stop some of the nonsense fighting that the many bar owners were constantly dealing with on these crazy weekends. After a weekend of fun, they would return to the mines, working in their instructed areas, digging out, moving about the yard, and transporting the wildfire coal to its next destination. The drinking, fighting, gambling, and more would continue even as the miners returned to work. Most lived on the grounds in small shacks, tents, or some even in nearby caves and tunnels that were not being used. A popular spot known for extra activities was above the old warehouse, where you could find a big old brass bed with, children, cover your ears here if you're listening, a lady known as Pretty Alice, that was there in case the miners needed any relief during their day at work. Now let's head over to the grounds and check out some of these old buildings while the rain lets up for a few minutes. Our first stop on the tour today is at the old miner's shack, found in between the gift shop here on the grounds and the Gray House. The miner's shack on the site is not quite an original one from the Atlas mine crew, but was one that was moved from another local ghost town, Rosedale, which is about 10 minutes away from the mine site. The whole shack is about 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters, 8 feet by 8 feet. It has one chair, a small table, one bed, a coal fire stove, a kettle, a pot, and a few other small odds and ends. They were very, very small living quarters for sure, and often more than one man would share the space. Men were known to sleep as many as 6 in some tents and small houses. They simply made it work because they had to. There are even tales of some men sleeping in nearby trees, natural caves, and tunnels not being used by the mines. Anywhere you could grab a few minutes' sleep was acceptable in these parts and appreciated after a long day's work. If you do have time to take one of the amazing guided tours here, this miner's shack is discussed in the Unmentionables tour that happens after dark. It is said many miners have not left the grounds and can still be seen roaming around, entering the old miner's shack, often heard still working in the tunnels, and so much more. As we head out to cross the road and head over to the mine site, we pass the Newcastle building, which, like the Gray House, contains exhibits that can be enjoyed when the doors are not locked due to COVID-19. Just look both ways here as we cross the street and head over to the mine site. And lucky for us, it looks like the rain is going to hold off. Just the gloomy clouds are going to hang around. Miners were often digging so close to the surface, women who went down to their basement pantries could often hear them working away, talking, or could even feel them chipping away at the rock and coal beneath their feet. Here across the road on your left is the old machine yard. Antique mining equipment is scattered across the field, like an old boneyard. Just past the old machine yard is a favorite here on the grounds, and we're about to take a tour with Linda. Linda is an antique train lover's dream. She is a pre-1936 battery-powered train on a narrow-gauge track. That's right, the train's name is Linda. Now let's hop on and go for a ride. As we ride around on Linda, the conductor will tell us a story about how, in 2013, a couple of volunteers spent the day decorating for the famous Big Boo Halloween event at the mine, when they decided to leave a recorder in the room they were working on just to see if they could catch anything. After the mine closed down for the day and had gone completely quiet on the recording, hours later, the recorder would pick up a loud bang of a door followed by 3 footsteps, and then they just simply disappeared. No more footsteps and not another door sound. It was a very, very strange recording that could not be explained by anyone. As Linda brings us around to the other side of the mine site, we hop out near the boxcar exhibit and the great tipple in front of us. As we stroll underneath the old 7-story tall tipple on the grounds, there is a small shed on the right, and then off to the left there is a lamp house and the wash house. But before we head over there, let me tell you about the time a tour guest was in the tipple when they claim as they were climbing up along the conveyor belt, they reported being shoved so forcefully from behind, and when they turned around to see who had shoved them so hard, there was no one around at all. Side note, if these grounds seem a little familiar to you, it was once featured on the Amazing Race Canada television show, where the contestants had to fill up 2-ton coal carts. The lamp house, just to the right of the wash house, was used to store the miners' carbide lamps for their helmets, which means there was literally a flame right on top of the miner's head in a coal mine. A very risky move, and they did this until the early 1950s. As you may have noticed walking around today, there are many no smoking signs everywhere. It was a very serious matter on the mine grounds, and you would be fired on the spot if you were caught. But trust me, that didn't stop the miners from smoking. But let's head over to the haunted wash house. That's right, the wash house on these grounds are not only a creepy sight to see just as they are, it's also home to a few lost souls. It's just starting to rain a little again here in the Badlands, so it's a good thing we're heading inside for a few minutes. Just remember, we may not be the only ones on this tour today, so do keep your eyes open. The wash house is the spot where the miners would start their day. They would change out of their clothes and into their work gear. The miners' clothes hang from the ceiling of the wash house from huge metal hooks and a wire basket to keep their wash stuff in. They were attached by a lever system so you could lower it, grab what you needed, and then raise them back up to the ceiling again. The clothing was kept up high to try and avoid it being covered in coal dust at the end of the miners' shift. It was their locker system. Another bonus after the long cold shift, your clothes were often very warm due to the hot showers in the next room. The room essentially has men's clothing draped on somewhat scary-looking metal hooks hanging from the ceiling. They almost appear as if ghosts are flying around up there. Next to here is a solid concrete room with metal shower heads spread out across the room. Miners would come here and wash off after work, often sharing one shower head between 4 men. Remember how I said the showers were hot? They were also very popular. Having a hot shower was a luxury at the time. Most houses in the area did not have running hot water. So on Sundays, women would come to the wash house to shower, and while this did cause a disturbance amongst the men, having so many naked women in one room is very tempting when you're stuck working up at the mine for days or even weeks at a time. But the women were safely guarded by a woman that was said to be as big as a very large bear, and she stood guard, fighting off peeping toms and allowing no man to enter while the women were in there. So who or what's haunting this place remains a mystery, but there have been lots of very strange encounters over the years. Streaks or orbs of light have been seen, men walking from room to room only to disappear when you go to look for them, and a few women in fancy dresses have all been seen in the wash house. The creepy metal hooks that the miners' clothes once hung on have been seen on more than one occasion come smashing to the ground, but not like it fell because the place is old and things just break, but like it was thrown with force. A medium who was once on the mine site claimed to feel the presence of the local lady of the night, Pretty Alice, I told you about before. Pretty Alice was known to hang around the mine site, more particularly in the supply house. Why her presence was felt in the washroom remains a mystery. Maybe Pretty Alice traveled around the mine site more than people think. Pretty Alice, like I told you before, was known to have a big brass bed in the attic of the supply house just past the wash house, and men would stop to grab equipment and such as they needed, especially on payday. Another common pair of ghosts seen on the grounds is a young boy and a woman in a brown dress. The little boy is often believed to be the son of the mine owners, the Patrick family. In 1928, their son Billy, who was just 2 years old at the time, wandered away from the family's yard with the dog he was playing with. The dog was found hours later, badly hurt, soaking wet, but sadly, Billy was never found. Now let's head 210 feet underground and check out this tunnel. But first we better grab ourselves some pit ponies. Small pit ponies were used to carry the miners' coal in and out of the dark underground tunnel that heads in 4.5 kilometers or 2.7 miles. The ponies are recognized for saving many lives as they were able to sense cave-ins and gases in the mine before the men could, often stopping in their tracks and refusing to go any farther as a sign something was wrong. Or they would simply turn around and just head right back out, and they were often right to do so. A famous pony on the site was Strawberry. She was given to the new guys as she was said to know more about the mine than they did. One new guy was given Strawberry. As he entered the tunnel underground with her, She suddenly stopped at one of the doorways and would not move any farther. He tried to bribe her with carrots to move, as he feared he would get in trouble for moving so slow. And Strawberry refused to move any farther. She would not budge. The new guy then thought he had been given a stubborn pony and decided to head back out and grab a new one. Just when he got Strawberry and the cart turned around to head out of the tunnel, right behind him a collapse would happen. The new guy used Strawberry from that day forth and refused to use any other pit pony. Even though the mine is shut down today, it is said there is enough coal still in these hills to heat Canada for the next 100 years. The miners worked hard, 8-hour days with little to no breaks, some of the worst conditions, whether it was an extremely hot summer day in the desert like the Badlands, or it was a freezing cold day on the Arctic tundra of the rolling hills. They would shovel 8 to 10 tons of coal a day out of the hills at a pay of 70 cents per ton. Remember that lady that is often seen on the grounds in the brown dress? It is believed she is the woman who came to the mine on Tuesday, June 24th, in 1941. As the story goes, a miner's wife came running into the mining office after stating she had heard an explosion and feared for her husband's safety. She was dismissed by the mine manager and told there was no such explosion and that everything was fine and she must have been dreaming. Some say it was the next day, some say it was the same day. For our story, we're going to say it was the same day. On June 24th, 1941, the fourth biggest explosion in the Drumheller mining era would happen. 3 men would be killed in a methane gas explosion while digging a trial tunnel at the mine site. The mine manager, Harry Crowder, who was 54 years old at the time and was the same manager who had received the warning just moments before from the miner's wife, would go to investigate what was actually the second explosion that would go off at the mine that day, if you believe the miner's wife actually heard something, which most believe she did. Crowder would fall victim to the poisonous gases inside the tunnel and was found just 70 feet inside. Adding to the belief there was a prior explosion, one of the deceased miners actually died from a heart attack, not the poisonous methane gas like the others, suggesting a very loud boom could have scared the miner to death before any gases were inhaled. The 3 men were the only ones in the tunnel at the time, so what truly happened will always be lost with them. Though the woman was not killed in the explosion, most believe it is her still seen on the grounds in the brown dress, as a reminder of the warning that was ignored that fateful day. She is also often seen waving to a young boy that many like to believe is young Billy, I told you about earlier. Now let's head over to the old mining office here on the grounds and find out who's still standing guard of the old safe and what was actually inside it when it was finally opened up. The last stop on our tour today is the old mining office, an office that has held so much mystery for so many years, because it always had to remain locked, and I mean always. The last manager of the mine always left his office door locked up tight no matter what. Even if he just left to go out for 5 minutes, it was bolted up. Many rumors swirled around the mine site for years speculating what the manager was trying to hide in his office. Even when the mine shut down and everyone left, the old manager's office door remained bolted shut. Here's where it gets even stranger. Once the mine was set to become a National Historic Site, it was only under the agreement that the mine manager's office door remained locked, a request that was honored and mentioned during the tours, which left many curious people wondering why the door still had to be locked. Then there was a break-in at the mine. They attempted to get into the mine office with no success. After the break-in, the historic site opened up the office door, hoping to discourage any more break-ins. What was found when the door finally came open? A very large, locked safe sitting in the corner of the office. The mine manager is quoted as saying he didn't want the pass opened up. Most believe he was hinting at the dark secrets hiding in his office. Such things as complaints made by miners and union organizations that were hidden deep in the old mining office. There was a lot of bad accidents at the coal mine over the years. Cover your ears or skip ahead about 1 minute if you don't want to hear this part. Miners were crushed between carts of coal, beheaded in terrible equipment accidents, run over by the coal mine train, not to mention being caved in on, and caught in gas explosions. The dangers these men faced on a daily basis are pretty terrifying. No wonder there are so many unsettled souls roaming around these grounds. Today, no one knows what the mine manager was trying to hide for sure. What we do know is that in 2003, the lock safe in the locked office was finally cracked once and for all. A combination to the safe was found hidden on one of the walls, and then again written in a book in an office drawer. The locked safe had remained such a mystery to so many for so many years, was finally opened on TV thanks to an Edmonton CTV reporter. You can find the link to the video at nothingcanada.com, or of course it's always in the show notes, and watch them open the safe for yourself. What was found when the safe finally came open was some much needed old keys to buildings on the property, old pay records, a company seal, and some records regarding the last few days around the mine. It was not gold, silver, or even gems that some believe the mine manager was hiding in there. It was a treasure greater than that to the National Historic Site. Those records are worth more than any rare metal or gemstone. But there does seem to be a secret possibly still hiding in the old Atlas coal mines manager's office. A secret so good that Dr. Omar Patrick, the old mine property owner himself, as well as a known pit boy from the mine, Johnny Vasco, have both been seen still leaning against the now open safe in the old mining office. Just makes you think those two may be still guarding something we may have missed. I'm Canadian Girl. Until next time, my friends. Want to help support the show? You can do that in 3 simple ways. The first one, you can leave us a shiny 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This small gesture means so much to this podcast as it allows us to move around on the podcast charts and meet more awesome listeners like you. The second, you can stop by our souvenir shop and pick up a souvenir from one of our great adventures and take it on your very own. There's t-shirts, water bottles, notebooks, and so much more. Do head over to our souvenir shop today and grab some adventure gear. And finally, the third way you can help support the show is by donation. We have a fancy PayPal button that can be found on the top right of our webpage. This button allows you the option to donate as much as you want, whenever you want. All donations will be used for the channel by buying new books for research and upgrading equipment. All 3 links to help support the show, of course, can be found in the show notes below. I thank you all so much for your support of the show. It means the world to me.